The Calling from the Woods. My mom grew up in a small town, and she has had quite a few creepy encounters as a teen in the late 70s. One night, her mother told her that she'd had to go feed the cats who lived in the outside sauna in the winter. She reluctantly went outside since it was such a bitterly cold night that year. She would get halfway to the sauna when she would hear a man calling, "Help me!" from the woods nearby her home. She got spooked and ran back to the house and tried to tell her mom that there was someone yelling outside. Her mom told her it was just the wind and to go back outside to feed the cats. She went back out and got about halfway to the sauna when she heard a man call for her help. She was positive it wasn't the wind, and this time made her mom come outside to listen. Her mom heard the "help me" calling from the woods. She called for her husband to go look into the woods to see what it was, since she didn't think it was a good idea for her daughter and herself to go looking around for him. My mom's dad went into the woods to see who was in need of assistance and was stunned to find a man in a long winter coat standing in the woods near the house. When the man in the coat saw my grandpa, he ran towards the dirt road and got into a car that sped away quickly. I don't know what the man in the coat intended, but I'm certain my family doesn't want to meet him again. Family in the Woods. I love this subreddit, and I'm sure this just is the first of a few stories I will post here. This story happened to my father. My dad has had many jobs throughout his life, and in the 70s he was a pig farmer. He would raise pigs and sell them by the pound at the auction. Then he would deliver them to the buyer. Well, one time he was delivering a load of pigs to a buyer way up in buttfuck nowhere, Arkansas, and one of the pigs got away. The pig ran into some woods next to the property, and my dad finished unloading the rest of the pigs before going off to find the one that ran away. It took him a while to find the pig, and my dad says he honestly wished he hadn't. When my dad found the pig, it was dead, with an arrow sticking out of its side. Just before my dad walked up to the pig's body to see who the hell shot his pig, he heard two men coming from deeper into the woods, whooping and hollering. My dad ducked behind a tree, just as two really gnarly-looking fuckers came running up to the pig. They were both wearing overalls with nothing underneath. One of the men had a really gnarly-looking cleft lip that my dad said he looked like the guy from the Hills Have Eyes remake, the one with the road spikes. The other guy was just really old and skinny. The two men picked up my dad's pig and sliced open its stomach, spilling its guts onto the ground. Then, the two men dragged the pig off, and my dad followed them. The two men walked up to a small ramshackle shack that had 4 people sitting on the front porch. As the men reached the house, a woman comes out with a boy, who is probably too old to be breastfed, attached to her right breast. My dad said that almost every single one of them had a physical deformity, so he noped the fuck out of there. Hillbilly hill people, let's not meet. The woods have lights. Another Redditor said y'all might enjoy this. It's a comment I made over an Ask Reddit about creepy things that's happened in the outdoors. To preface this, I want to say last year I spent about 32 days in the woods, either scouting, hunting, or fishing. The year before that, I spent about 22 days. This doesn't include my regular hunts and camping adventures, which in the past 3 years adds up to just over 100 days. I've been hunting since I was 9, and have spent a lot of time outdoors, in various different parts of the US and in Canada. I've seen and heard a lot of strange shit, but this takes the cake. I was in Cohutta, North Georgia wilderness for 7 days, scouting for bears, wild hogs, and deer, prepping for a hunting trip later that year. I had hiked in about 10 miles, and that went off trail for another 3 to 5 miles basically. I was out in the middle of nowhere. Since I was alone, I was using a hammock that has a built-in bug net, and I had a rain fly over it. I spent about 3.5 days up a mountain just looking for a good place to hunt. I saw 3 to 4 good-sized bears, about 10 hogs, and came across some good-sized deer. On the 4th day, I was going to head down to a small stream that I marked on my GPS, and then set up camp, restock on water, and prep for the 2-day hike back. I could have gone faster, but wanted to be able to look for any animal sign along the way. As I was approaching the small stream, I noticed a tent, which I was excited to see, as I had been completely alone for a few days, and it's always nice to run into another hiker. Generally, us wilderness folks are pretty down to earth. As I got closer to the tent, I noticed that there was a small pack on the ground just outside of it. I figured the person couldn't have been too far from where the camp was, so I set up my camp about 30 yards away, and with about 4 hours of daylight left, started cooking some dinner. 2 hours later, I was starting to wonder where this person was, given that I was in the wilderness and maybe it was a 1+ day hike out, so there wasn't much I could do. But I did hike around the site, making a circle as I went out to look for any signs of struggle in case of a bear attack or maybe they had an injury. I got about a 1/4 of a mile from the campsite, walking a circle, but I didn't find anything. As night came, no one showed. I started a fire in hopes that the person would be able to find where they set up and have some light. Fires burn really bright and are very easy to see from far away. After eating, searching, and hoping that the person was going to make it back, I called it a night. I had a small flask with me and took a couple sips of whiskey, jumped into my hammock with my pistol, and attempted to go to sleep. I sleep pretty hard, really hard, regardless of where I am. It literally annoys my friends because I can always seem to fall asleep and stay asleep, regardless of where in the world we are. But this night was different. I felt like something was off, but I figured it was just me worrying about this person who, by all my accounts, was completely missing. So, for the first time in my life, I woke up to the sound of what I thought was footsteps, but not in the sense of footsteps on leaves, but a heavy-footed person would make walking on an old wood floor. It was extremely loud. I got my gun, grabbed my headlamp, stored in a small compartment up above me, and waited to see if it would stop. Right at that moment, it did. Then I saw something that scared the shit out of me. On my rainfly, the gleam of a flashlight, faint but there. I shouted, "Hello?" And right when I did, it sounded like 10 people suddenly running away from me in every direction. I dropped out of my hammock and onto the ground, frantically turning on my headlamp, shining it all around me, but didn't see shit. My heart was racing pretty bad, but I thought it might have just been the reflection of the moon on the rainfly. Yeah, that was it. And those footsteps running away from me was probably armadillos or something, even though their eyes shine, and they're pretty easy to spot. Problem was that there was no moon. I never seen an armadillo above 2,000 feet. Not to say they don't live up there, but just never seen one. And for some reason, the campsite I set up by was gone. The fire had been put out by water. It was apparent because there was not a damn coal in the thing. I thought for sure it was about 4 a.m., but I'd only been asleep for about an hour. At this point, I wanted to leave, but hiking out in the wilderness while it's dark is always a bad idea. So I grabbed my flask, took a swig of whiskey, removed my rainfly so I could see out of my hammock and around the area I was in, and tried my hardest to go back to sleep. I was laying down when I saw some light hit the trees above me. It was clear it was coming from downstream, and I got out of my hammock and started yelling, "Hey, y'all need any help?" No response. I saw whatever was putting out the light, and it spun around and started heading downstream, really fast. At this point, my body had pumped through more adrenaline than it had blood, and I was exhausted from it all. I finally was able to fall asleep, and woke up around 7 a.m. When I did, I noticed that my water filter I had left out was missing. It's a gravity filter, and it hangs on a tree filtering water down into my main bladder that I put in my backpack, and my water bladder, sitting at the base of a tree, looked like it was cut down the middle with a knife. They cut down my bear bag, which had food in it, and took some of it. The creepiest part of it all was that they went through my bag, which was under my hammock, while I was sleeping. I checked the bear bag before I went to sleep the second time, and it was still there, hanging, and my bag under my hammock hadn't been touched. I packed all of my shit and hightailed it out of there, keeping my pistol close to me and moving as fast as I could. I ended up making the hike back in just 15 hours. I hiked the trail part in the night because I wasn't able to spend another night out there. I didn't see anyone on my hike out. There were no cars parked at the trailhead, and the DNR said they had only seen my car there. Since then, I haven't gone out there without any friends. I reported all of this to the local DNR, but they looked at me like I was crazy. Maybe I am.